back to another episode of the Wise Up series. Today we're gonna be talking about the quote, "You will never be content with who you are unless you appreciate whom you are becoming." Now, the business scholars or business researchers have given a name to the century we are operating in, that they call it VUCA, which means volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. In this environment, when business scholars are talking about VUCA, they are talking mainly about the organization. But as we work in organizations, we know that you cannot separate organizations from people. No matter what, profit, stakeholders, stockholders, whatever we are talking, the human capital remains one of the most important stakeholder of any organization. So my thoughts went deep around the thought that VUCA environment, if you're a business person, VUCA talks to you about your competitors, what is the latest technology that can disrupt your business. But to us human development experts and organizational development, it also speaks about the person. When we talk about VUCA, the volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous environment, what are human beings experiencing in that? In a nutshell, I'm saying, what's the impact of the VUCA environment on us, on individuals, on people, on employees? So I want to bring to you one thing that we need to always keep in mind as professionals. Yes, the VUCA environment is affecting everything, including us. One thing we may never know or stop to think about is how it's affecting us as human beings. Generally, we all caught in what theologian folks referred to as the destructive dualism of the workplace. I was also a victim of it, and I believe many of us are still working towards understanding the destructive dualism of the workplace. If you ever ask yourself sometime to say, this team I work in, I don't really fit, but I still need the money to put food on the table. I don't really agree with my team leader. I don't really agree with the values of the organization, or I do agree with the values of organizations, but I do not agree with the way my team does things or my team leader does things. Welcome. You have been thinking about what is called the destructive dualism of the workplace. Theologian folks says it separates our personal values from organizational values. The destructive dualism of the workplace separates our lives from our livelihood, our values from our work values, our personal needs from the needs of the community. The destructive dualism of the workplace strips us of what matters in life, leaving us hooked to professional success only. Let's stop there. Leaving us hooked to professional success only. Many people I've worked with, especially when we approach that age in life, you've been chasing professional success, you've been chasing your goals professionally. There come a time, I'm not sure if it starts at 40 for other people, but for me it started earlier than 40, around 30. I was asking myself, waking up, chasing goals, chasing master in business administration, chasing master of arts in organizational leadership. What is there in life? What really matters to me? Especially after you've climbed the corporate ladder. You have had all those accolades. You have had all those certificates that makes you a distinct professional. What I've noticed is that as we approach a certain age in life, these important questions start to sink in. What really matters in my life? I've also noted one thing that makes me worry, that most professionals rarely stop to ask themselves important questions. Important questions, by important questions I mean, have you ever thought as you chase your professional success, this important question that says, how do I ought to live? And if I know how I ought to be, I will know how I ought to live. But what I've noticed, guys, is that there's a big difference between what people think they ought to be and how they are living. And now mixed up with the destructive dualism of the workplace, it is hard to find yourself. Most of us, we think we know what we ought to be, but generally how we are living or how we are doing stuff is different from how we ought to be. There is a gap there. Actually, ethics specialists say all of us think we are more ethical than we really are. So what am I talking about? If you are a leader and you have determined how you ought to be, that's talking to character, how you ought to be. Then you are able to think around how you ought to live. That defines your relationship, interactions with your team members and other people in the community, how you ought to live. And then when you are always reflecting on life around those two things, you realize one thing. You have the capacity to realize things that are shaping your life in a negative way. If you want to be a leader who wants to be remembered for caring, for heading your team towards success, but leaving no one behind, you may realize that you are in a very complex environment, in ambiguity in business, and uncertainty may push you to get these habits of now pushing towards a goal and leaving other people behind. The only way you can reflect around that is when you know how you ought to be and how you ought to live. So, as I've always said, the purpose of these talks is not to just put principles out there, but is to build each other as professionals. If you at one go were thinking about what really matters in my life, I'll leave you with 3 steps that will help you navigate the VUCA business environment and still remain yourself, or still pushing the meaningful part of your life. You have a life and it should be meaningful according to your definition, not according to your organization, nor according to your leader. The meaning of life is so personal, guys. So the first 3 steps I want to leave with you. 1 says, define your life's mission and values with clarity. If we want to have a meaningful life in a complex environment of VUCA business environment, we need to define with clarity what makes meaning, what gives our lives meaning. That comes through our values and mission, your personal mission. If you mix with people, if you work with your team, what is your mission in that team? Is it to unite people? Is to make them fulfill their potential? What is that mission and what are the values that helps you sustain that? Step number 2, always take stock of factors influencing your life and how they are shaping you. The VUCA environment shapes our lives. Even if it's not a VUCA environment, yes, let's put aside the ambiguity, uncertain and volatile business environment. Our community, the whole community, every interaction we have in life shapes our thoughts. It shapes who we are becoming. So step number 2, would you sit down and watch, everything that's going on in your life? Is it in sync with who you want to be? Is it in sync with what matters in your life? So step number 2 is your way of accessing who you are becoming. Because remember I said, you've got who you ought to be, and sometimes we miss who we ought to be only through who we are becoming. You want to be this cheerful leader, you want dreams to be fulfilled, but sometimes the environment has pushed you to be bitter. So if you don't sit down, at the end, you wanted to be this leader, but you become that leader. Dreaded by many people to work with people, feel anxious when they need to work with you. It's time to show something within your environment has been shaping who you are becoming. And we're always in this race to juggle and balance who we ought to be and who we are becoming. Step number 3, address the existing gaps if there are any. Address the existing gaps. I'm saying if you see there is a gap and it's in the negative sense, you have to make tough decisions. Why do I say tough decisions? Sometimes it shall mean leaving the organization you're working for if the values always make you feel guilty. Sometimes it may mean changing your job. Sometimes it may mean starting something that you have always believed in. When you come to the reality of what matters in your life, you will be able to make tough decisions. Sometimes the toughest decision would be to change your mindset. A mindset that could have been running your life for the past 20 years, the realization to change it may not come as easy as it may sound or as I'm making it sound right now. But it's possible. So we have to make tough decisions. I want to leave you with just an encouragement. If life doesn't involve making tough decisions, we should know that the decisions we are making are not aligned to the things that matter in life. Because if what matters in your life is what really matters to you too, you will make tough decisions. You will make tough decisions. Sometimes it's to change a friend you've been hanging around for the past 10 years because they talk and whatever the line of thoughts you guys have been sharing is now different. You're pursuing a different path in life. You don't ditch them, but you now begin to include other people who helps you focus on your goal. So thank you. This is it for the Wise Up series. Talking up on you will never be content with who you are unless you appreciate whom you are becoming. Guys, I wish you success. Please think around what you ought to be, how you ought to live. Such kind of thinking and reflection builds your character. And go be successful. Blessings. Thank you.
So this brings us to the end of this week's Wise Up Monday video. Let us know what you think in the comment section. Make sure you like the video and also please share this video with your colleagues so that they do not miss out on our Wise Up Monday series. Lastly, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and click that bell icon so that you do not miss out on any new content.